look at me now, some ugly old man, but I'm very happy. Happier than I've ever been, more satisfied than I've ever been. All the doubts and fears, all the desires and longing for the wrong things, material things, stupid things, things that just belong to this life, that no matter what I collected, after 70, 80, 90 years, if I'm lucky, I would have to give them all up. I've swapped that for something permanent. I'm not going to lecture you, you know, if you don't want to listen to it, you don't have to listen. Just see what I have on my face. I'm happy. You could be happy too. This is something you should consider. I hope you will. Thank you.
تعودنا في معظم حلقات هذا البرنامج أن يكون أبطال قصصنا ممن دخلوا الإسلام ببساطة وسهولة، لكننا في حلقة اليوم أمام شخصية فريدة وصعبة طرحت الكثير من التساؤلات على مدى أعوام طويلة حتى وصلت إلى اليقين بالإسلام. إنه سليمان، أو كما كان يدعى قبل إسلامه جاري، الذي جاء من بريطانيا.
Good evening, my name's Suleiman Busby. I've been a Muslim now for 7 years, alhamdulillah. I embraced Islam here in Dubai, but after a long journey. It took me many years to accept Islam. It was not an easy thing for me. As a European, we're taught many incorrect things about Islam, and I had to unlearn a lot of these things. Also, alhamdulillah, I've managed to do that with help from many good people. I came to the Middle East in 1984. I came to Bahrain just to work. I thought I was coming for a year. I stayed for 23 years now in the Gulf and in Turkey. I've made many friends and discovered many things, and the chief thing I've discovered is Islam. When I first came to Bahrain, I was hoping to discover the customs of the Middle East, and this has turned out to be a very difficult thing, as people who come to the Gulf discover very early on. You find yourself surrounded by many foreigners of many different nationalities and faiths. They're all here to work, to achieve things for themselves. And this isn't what we expect to come for. This is not the culture that we're expecting to find. So for some time, Islam is obscured or masked from the people that come to the Gulf. So for a long time, I didn't discover anything about Islam. I heard the adhan, and I thought, this is very beautiful, what do these words mean? And people told me. But even so, this was just information. This was almost like tourism, and I'm afraid that's as far as many of us get, particularly English speakers, who find that people will speak English back to us when we arrive, and we carry on living our lives in the way we choose, and we find the other distractions and the things in the Gulf that we can do, things which are not so worthy, but things which seem pleasant at the time. So I, like so many people, carried on doing this sort of thing.
وبعد سنوات 10 من العمل في البحرين لم تترك أثرا كبيرا في نفسه تجاه الإسلام، بدأت مرحلة أخرى من حياة سليمان.
It was in fact probably 10 years later, after I travelled from Bahrain to Sharjah, to Dubai, and then on to Turkey, where I discovered something different. That's not to say that Islam is better or greater in Turkey, not at all. In fact, sadly, Islam is suppressed in Turkey in many ways. I discovered after my arrival in Turkey that there were some wonderful things to find out about that country. Of course, it has a great Islamic history, and this has sort of struck me visually straight away. I immediately discovered the beautiful Islamic architecture from the Ottoman period, the great mosques built by Mimar Sinan. These are some of the great icons of the Islamic world, and of great interest to many Westerners, and I was no exception. I was taken by the beauty of these constructions. But again, this is superficial Islam, and it was only after some time in Turkey I started to get to know the people very well. I made a point, after my time in the Gulf of spending all my time with other foreigners, I made a point of getting to know the Turks. In fact, I made it a personal objective to try not to mix with any foreigners if I could help it, to learn Turkish and to learn the culture and the customs of Turkey, which included the customs of Islam as it was in that country.
وكان حلول شهر رمضان المبارك لأول مرة منذ وصول سليمان إلى تركيا حدثا فتح عينيه تجاه هذا الدين.
In my first year there, we came to Ramadan, something which I'd witnessed many times before in the Gulf, but something which I just had let it pass me by, as most Westerners do. Just an annoyance, an inability to get a cup of tea during the day. In Turkey, I felt something different. I felt some sense of something else. And I soon noticed that the people who were fasting in Ramadan were the people who I'd already decided that I liked. There was an obvious correlation between the best of the people and the people who fasted. These proved to be the best of the Muslims, and I was attracted to them. So I joined in. I did what seemed like a strange thing. I started to fast in Ramadan, even though I was not a Muslim. And I found this very, very pleasing in many ways, quite challenging in other ways, but very, very pleasing. And I enjoyed the fast. I enjoyed especially the few moments before the Adhan of Maghrib and waiting quietly with the people that have been fasting all day, working right through the day, because in Turkey there's no allowance made for Ramadan in the work. So people are fasting completely from the beginning of the day until dusk, and they're working all the time. And I did this also. And this is difficult, but alhamdulillah we succeeded. And I was impressed with this, and this gave me a feeling of achievement, and it inspired me to do more studying. And around this time somebody gave me my first Quran. It was a Yusuf Ali translation, and I was able to read it in the English and to understand something. And I was amazed when I read it that there was nothing strange in this book. I'd expected it to be full of, I don't know, Eastern mysticism, whatever nonsense you like to think that as Westerners we imagine. There was nothing odd in it. In fact, what I discovered was it wasn't like the Bible. I'd never been able to understand the Bible. The Bible seemed to me to be full of contradictions, peculiar stories that didn't seem to add up, and things which didn't seem to convey the message of Christ. The message of Jesus didn't seem to come through in the Bible except in some parts. Later I've studied this more closely and I now understand why, but that's not the subject now. The point was that the Quran made complete sense. So I read it, and this inspired me to read more. I read the biography of the Rasul and the life of Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and this inspired me also. This was also very, very interesting. Clearly this was a great man in history. So this was facts, something that I could relate to as a Westerner, interested in logic. And I followed this. And I continue to follow it, but still nobody was doing any serious dawah to me. Nobody was trying to convince me that I should change my ways in any other way. So I became, if you like, an abstract scholar of Islam. I could have taken a qualification in Islamic studies, but this is of no real value if you don't intend to do something with it. And sadly I didn't. No one drew me across